Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Relief. My guest today is my friend Troy Olds. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Demetri. I appreciate it, man. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation with my longtime friend.
Yeah, we met like 10 years ago, and it was a good season of life for both of us. We were different people then. We walked the river together, literally.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about that stuff. Okay. Let's give me that kind of party. I like it.
Certainly. Like, there's a lot of good spirit in you, and that's what attracted us to each other when we first connected. And you told me, hey, there's this opportunity to Boise like this week.
Yeah. And you're the guy that said, I'll be there. I was like, all right.
Sure. Tell us a little bit what you stand for, and a little bit about what brought you to who you are now.
No, I appreciate that. What I stand for. Now, I believe that optimized human beings can create a well society and a better future. And so that's really what I'm a stand for, is helping people optimize their brain, their body, their relationships, and enjoy this life that we have here instead of, living in tension, stress, and anxiety. That's it in a nutshell, man.
And that's where we connected with this idea of biohacking. When it was new, and now it's a very standard word and a commodity. We can't really, if something will help you, so you have to find out for yourself what works. Now, you studied super different methodologies of wellness improvement for yourself, and then became a model for others to create their ideas. And then your story of either relationship loss or addiction becomes that model of others who are in that mud, and then you sit with them and walk them out of it. So that's the gift that you have and get to share with others as they grow and find their new self.
Amen, brother. Yeah, and thanks for that. Kind of setting the frame for people to get a picture of life. I currently work with Tony Robbins, with Tony Robbins companies, and I work with John Gray, the gentleman who wrote the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I'll share, I have an amazing wife. I've got, my kids we have 8 kids combined, Lori and I together, blended family. It's like and it's amazing. And we're a very close knit, loving family, but it wasn't always the case. In 2003, I walked into a rehab center, a recovery center, and I had hurt my brain and my body tremendously. And it was from the .com boom. I just thought that if I earned enough money, I was caught up in that ether of, we're all going to get rich, and people were getting rich. 22-year-old guys are becoming billionaires. And I had a very low self-worth and self-esteem. And so I thought that if I just earned money, it would make me okay. Right. And so what happened is it was about a 2-year process to develop and be in the conversation of e-commerce and .com. And then we hit the mother lode, so to speak. And my wife and I started earning money very, very quickly in a very short period of time. And that was, you would think that, we'd arrived, but we were standing on the lake in McCall, Idaho, Payette Lake, looking at properties that I could pay cash for. And I was terrified because that feeling didn't leave. In fact, it was bigger. I was literally terrified. It's like, oh my God, if this isn't it, what is it going to be? Now, the way I fueled that process to that 2-year run to get to that point, to begin earning money, was I drank just because that's how I was raised. If we fished, we drank. If we played basketball, we drank. It was kind of ingrained in. in our lifestyle. But what I'd also done is I started drinking a lot of coffee, 2 pots of coffee a day. When that stopped working, I got this product called Hydroxycut. I don't know if you remember back in the day, Hydroxycut had, before it was outlawed, and no wonder people lost weight because, man, this stuff worked. We weren't hungry and we could just work hours on end. And when the Hydroxycut didn't work anymore, I went back to some of the old party tricks that we used to do, little snoots of cocaine. And when little snoots of cocaine didn't work anymore, it was just like I was a Hoover vacuum. And it was brutal. I make it sound kind of cute and fun, but the reality is it was devastating to my relationship with my wife. I was avoiding my kids because I was working. That's what a good dad does, is he works and ignores his family. It's what I did. And the ultimate, what happened with that company is we made a lot of money for a while, and then that company went it went out of business. And so the money stopped overnight. Earning it, keeping it are two different things. And so, long story compressed, I doubled down on the supplements in order for me to recreate that. And so starting in 99, in 2003, I'm walking out of a rehab center, completely terrified of life. And so that's where my journey began. And I, everyone has trauma. Everybody has life. That's life. This is my story. I'm grateful for it. I regret nothing. And I've cleaned that stuff up. But we all have those crucible moments. And I feel like I'm the blessed one. I'm the lucky guy because I created an environment through addiction that literally gave me a brain that would not work for me anymore. And I had to get help. And so that put me into the path of recovery, right? 12 steps, spiritual program, Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle. It was a whole new world for me. And it wasn't one and done, man. I wasn't that guy that all right, I'm done. I'm going to clean up my life. It was a lot of self-reflection, self-assessment, a lot of help. And I've been 21 years in the 12-step program. And I've got coming up on 7 years of sobriety and recovery again. So obviously I didn't go one and done. I didn't come in 2003 and stay sober, but I tell people who have a similar story to mine, it's like, listen, we don't go to the gym once we've got a crisp 6-pack and we're buff, right? We go to the gym to learn how to get fit. And the same thing with recovery, whether it's 12-step programs or other avenues out there, we show up to learn how to get sober, and then once sober, recover. And those are two completely different things. Just not drinking is not pleasant for people who are drinking for covering up other reasons. So anyway, is that helpful? Now
No, it's
the whole story.
So I'm reflecting all kinds of ways of how I've helped my own way as a general contractor at a recovery house called One Day at a Time, because that's how it gets to recover. And I never really made too much money on that work. And I think we did operate as a loss, but I knew that giving people better environments helped their mental state.
Yeah.
Knowing that you let somebody die, and even if they made a bunch of mistakes and burn all their bridges, they're still people. There's still a spirit in there that deserves some love, right? And you're a source of it, right? Because you've made poor choices, and now you've rebuilt, right? You've
with help.
And that's the humble aspect of it. Is a lot of us don't ask for help. When someone is in the midst of suffering, speak to that person who might be hearing us now. How do you go about reaching out for help when you feel like you have no one to turn to?
Right. Well, you and I were raised in a generation, and I think we've had this conversation. I love my parents are amazing, and my dad's amazing. I got the blessing and the gift in my early 20s to work side by side with him for 5 years in construction. So it was a gift. But he was also very hardcore that suck it up, and I believe in suck it up. We can talk about that, but it was like asking for help just didn't feel like an option for me. When asking for help would trigger a voice in my head that says, just demeaning conversations in my head that, well, you're not enough. You're still, they're going to find you out. There's just a weird concoction of of voices that would show up. So therefore I would just plow through, figure it out, act like I knew, get found. It's just a crappy life, you know? And so again, why I say that I'm the lucky one, that alcoholism and addiction I had, and I believe that addiction, by the way, is a big blanket statement for anything outside of us, behaviorally, chemically, that we go to avoid the feeling within us, right? You know, it doesn't matter if it's pornography or food or gambling or overworking, many, many ways for people to check out. And I was blessed that I had something that shut my body and my brain down. I had no choice. And when I finally just said, like, I'm either going to get off the ride, which is, you know, felt comfortable for me. You know, a lot of people are like, I never thought of that. It's like, really? Mine always was a comfort card up my sleeve, man. I could always just get off the bus. There are people like me out there, right? When there was always a voice inside me that said, just keep going. Just keep going. And I think we all have that. And I think that's the voice of God, that still small voice. Just keep going. And I would even argue with that voice. Like, I don't want to keep going, but I would. And that's where, when life beat me down, I came to that place where I need help. Please help me. And it's really important, I believe, for anybody who might be listening to this, going through something similar, is that it matters who we ask help from, right? It's very important that we find the people who have what we want, or a lifestyle that is where we want to go, not be, but like have a life like. And so I asked help from people who actually could help me. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to learn to be a public speaker, I'm going to go to, you know, my friend Jace Souter. He's like pitching Jace here. Jace Souter, that's exactly what he does. I want to go to the best. I want to learn from him, and I want to compress time frames. When I wanted to get sober and recover, we called a recovery center, and they whisked my ass down there, and that's where the journey began. So,
I mean, do you want to talk about what that's like to fully surrender?
what I know from my own personal experience, and I have, again, 21 years in 12-step meetings. I've been to thousands, literally thousands of meetings. That's not recovery. It's a part of it, because we need connection. When I walked in the room, what it says in the book, in one of the books of recovery, is what we really have is an inability to form a true bond with another human, right? Because somewhere in our history, we decided it was not okay to be us. We separate from ourselves, and they caused it, so we separate from them. And everybody has their own little recipe, but that's ultimately what happens. And so people are difficult, right? And so when I walked in the rooms, it was about sitting and listening for the similarities, and until I was able to feel like I belonged there. And then it was about getting mentorship. And I truly believe that that's very important, to find the correct mentorship to walk us through a process, right? Just like if we're going to learn to speak publicly, there's a process for it. And I needed a mentor to show me what that looked like. So I actually forgot the original question, Demetri. What, am I on track, or
No,
can you ask it again?
You're definitely on track, but I'm saying, like let's say day one of somebody admitting that they
Oh,
committed
it was,
addiction.
yeah, surrendering. So surrendering was terrifying, and also a massive relief. What I experienced personally was everything that I had created about myself. Because I believe that we're all infinite. We're all divine. We're all like, there's no 7% worthy, 100%. We're all just worthy, right? But life, by design, I believe, creates environments where we start to put on inventions of ourselves. And so I created this invention of myself. People said, like, "Oh, you're introverted." I was like, well, to a degree. Well, I created this outgoing, I thought, charismatic, charming guy, this persona, because to survive society and have some kind of a life. But that was a complete invention of myself, right? it, at the end of the day, I didn't know how to be a dad, a husband, like a real boy by society standards, keep the lights on. So it was, but the invention is what I had created and worked with for many years of my life. So when I came into recovery and they said, surrender, you're gonna have to change everything about you. That's terrifying. Because who are we at the end of that? Right. And so, yeah, very terrifying, but also a very, re- relieving and lovely process. And it's not so, life doesn't always feel good. I believe that pain is that touchstone of growth. It gets it to those places to where we make those really powerful decisions that can save us. Like in my case, it saved us. So long answer.
No,
It
no,
was terrifying and lovely.
it's the right, it's your right answer. And um, knowing that you, as people say, that rock bottom is the
Mm.
foundation for a better future.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. Mhm. There's a lot to say about that. Some
No,
people just get it.
expand.
Huh?
Please expand on that. Like that. How many times does somebody have to hit their head against the concrete until they wake up and learn? And again, I'm graceful. I think we're all understanding your point. But then we say, hey, here's the door to recovery. Call it when
Mhm.
you're ready to walk in. We can't force you
Yeah.
to recovery or a better life. But this is what it looks like. And
Well,
you paved the path.
yeah. Yeah. I believe that, I'm just becoming through practice, being more of the observer of everything that's going on and knowing that we're all biologically wired as humans, but the histories are very different. Every human being comes into this plane with a different temperament, right? It's why you hear, I've heard it said that same family, one kid goes to Yale, one kid goes to jail, right? One person is raised in a family that creates an environment where one child is very, very, very driven, right? And doesn't look like anything's wrong. And the other one is wilting and falling apart. Some people strike out of fear and tension or reaction, right? They fight you. Other people, I'm one of them, would fight in. I wouldn't beat you up. I would beat me up. Right. So what I've truly see is everyone has their own unique recipe, their own ingredients to the recipe, and they're going to respond to this process of life differently. My pause in the beginning was I've seen and experienced a lot of really beautiful human beings have had some sobriety and recovery, rebuilt their lives, and then they overdose. They go out for whatever reason. And there are some ways to not allow that to happen, but it's a slippery slope, right? And so I just had a friend here locally, and I saw someone had posted on social media picture of him, his wife, his 3 little kids. This is a freaking amazing guy that I got sober with, relapsed for whatever reason and didn't make it to the other side. So that paints a picture. I don't know if that answers your question.
A lot, you know, and then you walk through that road together,
But
knowing that
it
the journey's not finished.
journey's not finished. And the other thing that people, whereas I used to be really, these things used to rock me emotionally. They still do. I feel it. But I also, through this process of recovery and practices and tools and lots of prayer and meditation, a lot of prayer and meditation. Ultimately, that's what this is. This is spiritual work, all that we do. I know that this is not it. This is not the end of it. It's just our what meaning we give death is going to cause us to feel a certain way. And so, although it's sad for the family that's still here on this plane, I believe in my own way, and I don't push this on anybody, that there is something beyond this, and it's all good. It's all good, even though it may be painful to experience.
I agree with you. I mean, I went to a funeral this week, a 57-year-old acupuncturist, right?
Yeah.
And what did I learn from it? Hey, get healthier.
Get healthier.
So I went to more trainings. I went to group workouts, and I grind my Chinese herbs, cook them now every day.
Yay. Nice.
Right.
Isn't it amazing? Like, it's just simple that I was sitting in the men's meeting this morning, and I was thinking about, I watch a lot of documentaries, and I see these kids and families who have nothing, like by our standards, they have nothing. They have enough to eat. They have a roof over their head, albeit something very like shanty and small, but they have these practices, these spiritual practices. And so therefore I see them and I compare them to many of what I see here in the States or around the world with the big mansions and the Lambos. And those are beautiful, by the way. That is not a bad thing. It's the people inside of those who are experiencing the physical while not experiencing the spiritual. Right. So that the people in that shanty are by far more wealthy than the people with the stuff. That was me in the past, seeking something outside myself, the house, the money, the status to make me something okay. And having no sense of self and no connection with a power greater than ourselves, than myself. And I was a few years ago back in the recovery train after some, I got another chance. Thank God. I was ambitiously on doing the spiritual work. And I don't mean to make this all like spiritual, but it is. It all is.
Yeah.
But I was doing a tremendous amount of work. I had very little money and I was joyously asking for help and helping where I could. And it was this beautiful reciprocation and harmony. And I was in a meditation. I just got this knowing that, oh, I am wealthier than I have ever been in my life. These beautiful relationships with amazing people that were heartfelt and connected. I had everything I needed, right? I had skill sets and ability and vision to go utilize these talents that God gave me to be a creator. And when I turned that from creator to get, from creator to be of service, the frequency changed and life is it was juicy, man. And now what's interesting is now the process for me is I can still get hung up out there and get expectations. Unmet expectations can create disappointment, right? And that's a cascading effect. So if I've done well considering over the past few years, but then they hit these benchmarks, right? Well, I did this last year. I got to do that again and then some. And when that doesn't happen, that causes that spiral effect. Does that make sense?
Right. So you're saying set targets for performance and not be attempts to, if we don't hit it, to beat ourselves up. To say as long as we make an effort towards that target.
Absolutely. I went through this just very recently and it was starting to feel tension, was starting to push and force. And thank God I have some tools when I was able to go, oh, wait a minute. And I sat down and I closed my eyes and really looked at my life from behind closed eyes instead of throughout looking in. I started seeing exactly what I was giving meaning to. It's just an interesting, you meditate. So you understand this language. So anybody who's not listening or doesn't do this, consistently, I encourage them to, because there is a language that all the answers that we seek are within. And so I just went in and I started realizing who I was showing up as and what meaning I was giving things, and was able to inform myself, information, correctly and congruently with what I must stand for. And so it took the pressure off. Every day was juicy. And from that space, abundance begins to flow. And so sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's relational. Sometimes it's with our health. It's just all these things. And sometimes it kind of deluge over at once. And I just, it's kind of like in 12-step meetings, there's a saying, this too shall pass, right? Oh, it's so painful and challenging right now. This too shall pass. Oh, I'm earning so much money and everything's so beautiful and fantastic. This too shall pass, right? We don't want to grip on to any one of these things and just live our life. So,
so you're saying not only don't be attached to the low moments of life, but don't also be attached to the high, because they may not either. And
the highs were the biggest danger zone for me, man. Is
it because you think it'll never end? Is it you think that the highs will get even higher?
I think there's still the hardware is still the same from the past, right? We rewire our neural pathways. We recondition and clean the traumas from our body, because the body really stores the unconscious and the history, right? So we do all that work, but the reality is, if you run some electricity to that area, it still lights up, right? And so when something lights up, the body's like, oh, we know exactly what to do, right? We're going to push, we're going to run, we're going to like all the, we just, it's like robotic. And so what happens with the work of recovery, the work of meditation, the work of just the work, right, is we get gaps. And so what happens is I notice, oh, this is an old behavior. This is an old pattern. This is coming from history, right? This is coming from lack. And I'm able to snip that and then refocus into the truth of things, which is we're already there. This moment is the gift. It's all perfect. And that, you know what I mean?
I love that. And then what would you think would be like a decent word script, like simply said to say, all right, I'm not going to stay stuck in this pattern of the past, this reminder of an illusion that may not exist anymore. And I'm going to, like you said, feel grateful for the moment I have right now.
Yeah. Okay. Something simple. Well, I think it's important that people become aware of and become interested in what science says, that we are only operating on 5% consciousness, but yet we think we're choosing 5% consciousness. So what that means is, and that's probably an ambitious number, at least 95% of our thoughts, behaviors, actions are all unconscious, meaning that we're being chosen, right? So it becomes, so it's very robotic. And so we're always going to go back to the habituated way of things. So it actually takes a tremendous amount of intention and focus to observe ourselves and identify and ask the question, is this my belief or is that someone else's belief? And then go in and ask the question, what do I believe? Right. And then recreate the behavior of the life accordingly. Was that an answer to your question?
No, that's beautiful. No, you're, it is, I look for like simple, and then I get like so much more, right? And
Well,
it's good because sometimes you think like, oh, what's the answer? I'm looking for like more words, and then you get a full story, and then you feel it more.
Well, yes, absolutely. And I know myself well. And so some people appreciate it. Some people are like, oh my God. But a lot of times, like when I hear myself speak, like I think through words, and then it takes shape until it crystallizes, until it can become simple. But until it crystallizes, sometimes it's maybe a little wordy, right?
It flows through you, right? Like you operate, I would say, at a frequency, at least of love, if not of bliss, right? And from bliss, it attracts things, opportunity, relationships, dynamics, working with, again, being students of personal development. Who do we look up to the most? The biggest giant of all in personal development is Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah. And Tony's made I listened to Tony since I was in junior high, is when he, right when he began. And that was in the mid to late 80s. And now he's, 47 years later. And I've had the real pleasure of being around Tony. Like, I'd like to say, yeah, Tony and I are really great friends. That's not the case. He is probably as connected as any human being on the planet, or maybe more so, and vast amount of experiences. But even Tony Robbins, over the past decade, has really become like moved into that spiritual realm. He's a new man. Like, it's amazing to witness. And anybody who is part of his world or is listen to things that he did 40 years ago versus experiencing him today. The man is open. His heart is open. Like, if you watch any of his interviews, like, he'll cry like on a dime because he's connected. And so that's a very beautiful thing to see with Tony Robbins. I also believe, and I'm blessed and gifted to get to work with him. It is an amazing thing. But I also believe this. There are amazing influencers like Tony and coaches and trainers, and they're very open in public, and they have things to provide and teach, right? The thing I love about Tony is not only teaches, but he practices. Too many people, most people that are out there, and I was one of them in the past, were teaching but not practicing, right? And it's kind of like, anyway, you can ask, I can just keep on flowing, man.
You have to walk your talk, right?
Yeah. The story of Gandhi, this woman, her son was eating so much sugar and he was getting diabetes. And so they walked, this is my paraphrasing. They walked for a week to get to Gandhi. And she said, Gandhi, tell my son to stop eating sugar. Right. They finally got to see Gandhi. Gandhi goes, come back in 1 month. And so they walk back a week and they come back 30 days later, walk another week, week to get to Gandhi. They sit down with Gandhi and she says, Gandhi, tell my son to stop eating sugar. And Gandhi looks at the kid and goes, stop eating sugar. And so the mom says, why didn't you say that the first time? And Gandhi said, 30 days ago, I was eating sugar. Right? So how can we teach something that we don't practice?
Well, yeah, one of my favorite songs from Bob Dylan, My Back Pages, and
What is it?
it's called My Back Pages. It's from his folk climb in the '60s, and he said I worry about being a teacher, right? Because he thinks that he'll be an enemy of himself the moment that he starts teaching. Because if you put words out there, they say, hey, this is what needs to be done, or here's a good way of living, and you're not living it, you're lying to yourself, right? Now, if it's the mirror to the future you, good. Hurry up and walk into it. You can't fake it forever, right? It helps open the door, but then you better kind of fill in the seat. If you got that job because you've lived a little bit about your experience and how great you were, hurry up and learn. And then ask for help. We've all been apprentices like you, right? You talk about going from mixing concrete to serving in big rooms with notable speakers who travel the world. That relatability that you have, that Tony has, is because you're open and raw and willing to cry. And having emotions on your sleeve is actually a strength because you're not hiding who you are. When we work with each other and size each other up, we need to align. Otherwise, we're not going to work well together. So you're leading by example in your own way, and I applaud you for that. And that's why you get to be in the echelon of strong leaders like Tony, because as he came up with that book a decade ago, which I keep urging my mom to read, Unlimited Power. Talk about how we can all walk into our full potential and be unlimited.
Yes, lovely. I'm glad you shared that book. That's Unlimited Power. It's what I had a mentor that I began working with in 2010 that I literally attracted to have a strong male mentor. And it was just divine. I'll spare the story of how it happened, but it was miraculous and obvious. And I worked with this person and they taught me the form of meditation, one of the forms, because there's many ways to meditate. But this particular process was my first real entry into this world, and it was incredibly powerful. But he would say things like, I know you better than you know yourself. And he would say things like, I know you're at that time my girlfriend, because, share that whole story, leaving my wife and my kids, and crazy addiction to a bitch, but I don't blame that. I blame the lack of doing the work. But anyway, he said, I know your girlfriend better than you. My fragile little ego, like, oh, you don't know her better. So one time I came in to meet, I met with him about 2 or 3 times a week, and we did this work. We were cleaning up historic traumas. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm started meditating like you asked. I'm doing it 5 minutes. And he literally, he just laughed. He says, you're not even there. And hopefully this doesn't turn a lot of people away from this practice. He says, you're not even, you haven't even begun. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, listen, stretch that time frame, right? And that you sit with eyes closed in this process and see what happens. And so I did. I took him up on that. And for 2 years, I sat with eyes closed doing this meditative process. And I found that at 45 minutes in, something completely changed in me. Now I've shortened that I've learned a practice to compress that time frame so it can happen much, much faster. But at that time, it was 45 minutes in. I literally went from body to spirit and started communing with what I now know is the divine, with that the all that we all have access to. And that's where things changed my life. That's where things really transformed for me, is going from that 45-minute mark and beyond. All answers that I was seeking were shown to me. So people say, I could never sit for an hour in meditation. Well, if I told you that by sitting an hour in meditation would give you 3 more hours of quality time during your day, would it be worth it? Because that's exactly what happened. Going into that place and getting the clear, direct marching orders of what's next for our lives, and cleaning and noticing what needs to be cleaned up, right? With our family, our children, adjustment and thinking. That's what happens there, right? So now when we come back out of that place and we begin to go about our day, it's clearly paint by numbers. Go here, go here, go here, go here, versus like this child running around going, I'm going to put this fire out. I'm going to do this. Are you with me? Does that make sense?
No, it's the state of being and attracting, not chasing.
It is. And the other aspect of that is, from that space, we're also now bringing something to the planet that I think is very, very much needed right now. We have something that's a collective consciousness, which is a frequency, the way everybody thinks, and it's being programmed by what people are watching, listening to, right? And it's a relatively low frequency, that the mass consciousness. So those of us who sit in meditation and access that high frequency, what we're doing is we're literally channeling that in to everybody on the planet. So again, everything I talked, launched, you were part of this back in the day when we were doing like all the fitness stuff. And we still do that, but they're all really just kind of tricks. Like, I'll help you get a 6-pack, and I'll help you, have a better sex drive. And we're like, yeah, I'm in. Because from a marketing standpoint, you give them what they want so you can give them what they need. So we would get people in, and we would do that. They'd get 6-packs and they'd feel amazing. But we would start with connection, education, like in the kitchen, and then ultimately would lead to breath work and meditation. Right? So it was just a way of giving people what they want, so that then they're open to, oh, maybe we'll sit down and we'll close our eyes and we'll try this meditation thing. And I just believe that that's going to be what transforms the world, when more of us are in that space. And that's really what I'm a stand for, man.
No, it's
and when I teach like this, Demetri, this is me. When I teach it, I'm holding myself accountable. Like, I'm talking to myself and everybody else is listening in. Are you with me?
right.
Like, so being part of
future you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm holding myself accountable, because if I'm telling you, which this may go touch some other folks, I want to embody the teaching, right? Because I think we live in a society that's so distracting, and everything's outside of us, that it's being reminded that we already are there and going in is really a habit that needs to be created and a muscle that needs to be strengthened. And that happens through consistency. So
No, and I love that you foster that community. At the time that we met, it was because, pain brought me to you, right? The pain of a divorce, of a loss, of, hey, I thought the life that I was going to have was going to kind of go the full road, and it didn't. And then I became open rather than shut
yeah,
and withdrawn, right? I felt alone because friends and others you had are no longer in your circle. And married people don't want to go anywhere near you because they think it's like a cold that they'll catch. You're somehow living a better life.
there's actually some truth to that, though. You know that there's
Right?
studies that show that if people associate, if married couples, if one of the man or woman go spend any quantity amount of time around someone who's been divorced, the chances that them divorcing go up pretty significantly. It's a reality. Because again, what we hear, what we see, the frequency, the entrainment, the questions that pop up, right? It's wild, man. So that's a good opportunity to say who we associate with matters. Choose wisely, people.
Right. And so it's not something that happens to you, it's something that happens for you. Right.
Yeah.
It says, okay, this road was not meant for you. Right. So now go take a different road. And so, and part of being open, like I learned things like, oh, how to make keto chili, or how to do this, or how to do that, and then going to Idaho, I made an ask of you. I said, hey, I want to go to a hot spring.
I love it when those photos memories pop up on Facebook. It's like, that was so awesome, man.
That was like the best story ever. You show up like 5:30 in the morning on the dot in a beautiful classic Mercedes.
That's called a recovery car, dude. It was a $3,000 Mercedes.
It looked like it was built to last.
Yeah, built to last, man. It's what I can afford. So yeah, it was fun though, huh? That's what we had.
You drove us all, me and another guy that was with us then drove us like for about an hour without a GPS,
Yep.
but we knew which mile marker to stop at. And then we get out of the
Yep.
car and I said, where's the hot spring? It's across the river.
It's across the river, man. Yeah, we had to work for it.
After we crossed the river, I started feeling all these little, like, the cold. It was like, must have been 30. It was October then. And I'm like, oh, like little knives. I'm like, I can't go anymore. I'm like, you either keep going or you fall into the river. So you have to keep going.
But it was worth it, right? We went through some
Absolutely.
challenges to get to that.
And then,
So
and then
funny,
you go up
man.
that hill, right? And I go up this hill, and then somebody had put liner in there because apparently they found it first, and left a beautiful landscape where you get to enjoy the stars and the trees, and like you said, the nature, all that infinite, right? God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's all there.
Yeah.
Like an exclusive view, right? And then you get to see the sunrise and have nice breakfast. Like that, that's a priceless experience. And it costs nothing. But
Nothing. Yes. It took effort. That was beautiful. As you're sharing that, it's like time travel, right? When we bring up that memory, like literally, I can see that the leaves had changed, right? The drive, the feeling. It's so fascinating. I love how the mind works, and I love how we can be transported, just like literally like time travel.
Oh, yeah.
But that was really a fun experience, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, it felt it was like a wealthy experience, right? And then to go have breakfast and come to Ketchum, right?
Yeah, we went, no, it's Crouch, and for all Idaho people will know, it was Wild Bill's. So we had lunch or breakfast at Wild Bill's, and that was nice. So that was a fun experience. So yes, I guess I don't want to call it unfortunately. In the past 5 years, because of GPS, and we have had a pretty big influx of people who love Idaho also. Man, I tell you, there's a lot of people at these different hot springs, and of course they want to enjoy them too. But all Idaho people know Garden Valley, they know Crouch, they know Wild Bill's, and so
okay,
normally don't tell people.
With you then. I'd love to go to the
We got to come back out because we've found and been really enjoying some new locations that they do take a little bit of work, but man, it's so worth it. Like no light pollution out in the desert, and it's awesome, man. It is awesome.
See, that's where you go. Instead of saying, oh, there's no more hot springs because they're crowded, or you can't have that beautiful experience like 10 years ago. Well, now you can have it somewhere
Yeah.
else from a new perspective as a new you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're
Well, yeah, we were at there's a hot spring here that you and I didn't go to, but it's called Kirkham. And back in the 90s, man, it was pretty vacant, man. And it's not like real secluded either, but it's just the population was so much less back then. And I went about 3 years ago, was the last time I was there on a trip back from Hawaii because I was living in Hawaii for a while. And it was like Disneyland, man. There were people everywhere. But the cool thing about it was just that shift in perspective. It's like, wow, look at these families having such a great time. Look at all these families who are getting to enjoy nature and a grounding in the frequency. So it's like, man, we accept what is. Like, this is what it is. So
well,
celebrate it.
we're so used to the bills of life. We're so used to the monthlies and the dailies and the chores and our obligations and duties, and we hold them well because that's who we are as responsible leaders and men. However, there's in nature, when you go out, and I've gone to many national parks driven across the country. I haven't gone to Hawaii yet. I'd love to hear more about it, but
That's a fun story.
splendor, and it doesn't cost much to enjoy. And when you're stressed out and you ground, there's so much power in that. Like how long would you suggest people ground for, just to get started or to get into that practice of grounding?
Oh, it's just literally minutes. They've done studies. You can like look them up. It is almost immediately inflammation begins to decrease in the body. And, Lori and I, we have grounding sheets on our bed. You can buy those. They're inexpensive. So we ground all night long. Sleep was improved. Inflammation was reduced. I've got a grounding mat below my desk, and literally it's just it grounds us to the earth. And a very worthy study. There's amazing research on grounding, but getting out whenever we're feeling just a little out of sorts. That's a cool thing about it. We just learn. It's like, oh, this is where I'm at. This is what I need to do. We'll literally just walk outside, take off our shoes, sit in the grass, and just enjoy and breathe. And so that's good medicine, man. Like this weekend, that's part of my process, and is to just get out in nature, go find some trees, and enjoy the sounds of nature and be out there. That's really what we're wired for, as human beings. But yeah, that's the thing, that it's just constantly doing more the work to embody more of the values that we create for ourselves, right? What does that look like? And there's a fun, simple template for life. And then we can adorn it with more bells and whistles as we get the fundamentals, right? But I think for me, it was just really understanding that there are some fundamentals to life that if I just behave in a certain way, show up in a certain way, that things go pretty well, right? And that was like the template that I didn't have coming into adulthood, that recovery and help and people in practice has given me. And now we get to put more bells and whistles on it, right? So that's really,
it's structure.
Yeah.
People need structure in their lives, and kind of speak to that, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're like, we fly our own flags, we set our own schedule, we set our own work hour. How do you talked about these positive routines, breath work, meditation, exercising, even counting our macros if we're going that far. How does that all consolidate into that power of good habit, so it can compound success?
Keep it simple. Keep it simple and start right where we're at with what we have and take on one thing. And consistency will far outlast massive ambition or massive, what's the word? I would rather do a little bit on a daily basis than a whole bunch for a while, because that flames out. At least that's been my history. Getting fully obsessed and creating massive like change too fast. It's like we just go back to what we were. So, I've got a list of routine that on maybe a few times a month, I knock all of them off the list. What that looks like is I wake up, I have a big glass of water and I drink it. I have the 5-minute journal, a gratitude list, and I write in it. I come into my kitchen, I get coffee going, I roll out my yoga mat, and I do the 5 Tibetan rites. That very worthwhile looking into. I can send you a link if you want. 5 Tibetan rites are just ways of moving that doesn't take long, that they have identified over a couple thousand years, reverse the biological age of the body by activating energy centers and keep mobility and flexibility. It also puts us into our body. And then I will sit in my chair and I'll do 4 rounds of Wim Hof breath work, right? And then I'll hold, Wim Hof. And then from that space, I will put on my eye mask, put on my Bose headphones, pop in the Devi prayer, which is an amazing song that I've been using for over a decade that instantly triggers my nervous system to go into a flow state, right? And then I'll go in and I'll do meditation. And so that's an ideal morning for me, because that happens every day, not even close. Some days it's just some breath work and a cup of coffee even, right? Also in that is a cold shower, right? So to top that off, once I've had some coffee in me and I've done all that I just described, I will go and end my shower with frigid water, and what I do is I like prayers. I like memorization. So I say the Lord's Prayer. And I used to say it really fast. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. But I've slowed it down to a nice cadence, and I'll do at least 1 Lord's Prayer in cold water, and maybe 2, and better yet 3. And that's a little bit over 2.5 minutes of cold immersion, which they've shown actually really strengthens the immune system, really starts to burn yellow fat, create more brown fat, a lot of health benefits to that. And so that's the ideal flow, but just pick and choose. Like, this is the tool I got for the day, and run with something, but stay consistent and stack on when you can.
Because when you hear it presented this way, sometimes to someone new,
it's way overwhelming, man. I would. So what I believe is water and gratitude. Somebody just hydrates in the morning and does 5 minutes of gratitude, life will get infinitely weller. Stress will reduce. Joy will increase by drinking water and being grateful. That's it. That's all a person does. That's an up leveling.
It certainly matters. Our inputs, clean water. When public water is so polluted, we have to source, get better water filtration in our homes, or go to those clean sources and drink from that. Knowing that we're high performance vehicles and you can't put dirty inputs and expect great output.
Well said. That's so true. Yeah, we're water snobs for sure, and it's clean, it's filtered, and then we run frequency into it, so it's super structured, and that made a big difference, man. We had to cut back on certain supplements because, wow, we're getting a lot of saturation into the cells, which is great. Saved us some money, but there's a lot of fun biohacking stuff we can do, huh?
That's interesting, because a lot of times we think that this vitamin has 300% of what we need, and we need 300% of it to somehow get through the day. But it needs to be bioavailable, right? It needs to connect with our cells, and if our receptors aren't,
right.
you're making it
100%.
So,
yes.
So, speak to time management. How do you go about making time for what's important, and then making time for things that just come up? Because, like you said, a family of 8, things come up. How do you go about moving through the day and feeling at rest and at ease, knowing that you've done good effort, even bulb something magic here?
Good question. So it's kind of like I heard my friends say, I have a deep and abiding love of God, and it comes and goes. It's one of the most spiritual men I know. I have a deep and abiding love of God, and it comes and goes. And if he's saying that, that answered a lot of questions for me, right? Same thing with my day. Some days I wake up not refreshed for whatever reason. Maybe it's something I ate, maybe I went to bed late. And so it's just more of a trudge through the day. And I check off the list. I check it off and I show up to the best of my ability. But when I'm in flow, I know what to do. I know how to do it. My job is to be fully present for the experience, right? So what occasionally something comes out of, that I wasn't expecting. One of my kids come over, right? And I'm okay with, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing and I'm going to spend time with my kid because it matters. And I want to enjoy that time, and then I can get back. And what I found is that it all works out, right? I'm investing my time now here. I'm investing my presence and my focus here. And that's just magnifying that relationship, and everything just takes care of itself. But I was not the best at time management historically. And so what I've learned through Tony has helped me. There's another, I forget his name right now. It'll come to me later. Just processes of structuring and organizing so that I can keep the main thing, right? And focus on the most important things. And then the other things can be put aside for later or outsourced, right? Or eliminated from the list. But it's really about, when I get up in the morning, I'll blast out on paper all the things in my mind just to clear it out. There's a book called Essentialism I highly recommend. It talks about this. If I write everything down, get it out of my head, then I'm able to look at it and say, okay, this is what's urgent and important and where I need to focus my time and my attention. And that's it, man. That's really it. So I know my life is, first and foremost for me is my spirituality. Without it, I'm a tyrant. Without it, all is lost. Without it, it's a spiral downward. So my spirituality, that also means that I need to keep my brain and my body as optimized as possible. That means quality nutrition. That means quality sleep, right? It also my relationships, very important to me. My work, very important to me. So compartmentalizing all those things is like really an art form for people. You got to find out what matters to you, and play those games. As an example, not play those games, but play it to the best of our ability. I work with John Gray. His partner, Rich Bernstein, is my coach, and he's phenomenal. I went through the Mars-Venus coaching to become a Mars-Venus relationship coach, not to be a Mars-Venus relationship coach, although I have been coaching people in that work. I did it because I needed to learn and level up. How can I make this new relationship with Lori the very best it possibly can be? And they taught me some really amazing things. And so everybody in relationship, men especially, can we kind of shift gears on this? I want to segue into this. This radically shifted my experience in my relationship. Our wives are not our therapists, right? They want to know two things. And women who are listening to this, please don't throw darts. But to a degree, every woman wants to know two things. I'm the only one, right? I'm the only one, and you got me, right? I'm the only one, and you're safe, right? That's it. When a man goes to their wife as a therapist, I'm afraid that we're not going to pay the bills. That takes away trust. That changes the dynamic of the relationship. This hot topic of polarization, I believe, is real, right? And so a couple of things that I started implementing into my relationship with Lori. First thing is, we talked about it earlier, and this is a different kind of suck it up, but there's suck it up. I got stuff going on. Things aren't going like I expected them to go at work. The cash flow's not coming in as expected, right? So therefore, some of my goals are not being met on a timeline that I needed, right? So that creates tension. I don't bring any of that stuff to her ever. We're good, baby. We're good. I got you. We're good. I got you. And then I take anything that I need to process to a therapist. I don't have a therapist now, but I have a 12-step sponsor. I've got really great men and mentors and a life coach, Rich Bernstein. And I take that shit to them, and then we process through that stuff so that I can come back and I can make sure that my wife knows that she's the only one and that I've got her and that she's safe. That's it. Right. And then now we have this beautiful relationship. The other aspect, the way I'm able to feed into that relationship is the point system. So it's very easy to take relationship for granted. I told you I loved you last week. No. What did you say today? How did you behave today to show I love you? And what did you say? Did you say it, right? We've got to say it. We got to do it. And the point system is this. This is how I am able to score a point in my relationship. In the middle of my day, you set a timer, make a sticky note, whatever. I open my phone, I go to Lori's, and I say, baby, I love you so much. You are such a queen. I'm so excited to be with you, right? Send. Point. It's a point, right? Every single day. The other thing is, I used to occasionally bring home a dozen roses in a relationship. And I think, well, that's 12 points. No, it's a point. Bring home a rose. It's a point, right? It's a point every single day. Doesn't mean you have to bring a rose home every day, but if men will create the point system and live by the point system and ask themselves on a daily basis, at the end of the day, how'd I do? Right? It'll change relationships completely. The other thing, and I'll close with this, is the 7-second hug. My friends Marla and Jamie, they say a 21-second hug. So longer is better. But when you wrap your arms around your partner and you breathe and I got you. Now, that's what I literally do it. Lori knows what I'm doing. She went through the coaching with me, but she knows what I'm doing. I got you, baby. You're the only one. I got you. But it calms the nervous system, reduces cortisol. The central nervous system relaxes. It's one of the kindest things we can do for one another, right? Both ways. And so just implement those few things into the relationship, guys, and watch what happens.
I think that's relationship gold, and divorce attorneys will start hating you because they'll have this. These people actually work on their relationship, right? And making deposits, right? Like a savings account. It compounds interest. If you stop the clock and you take that moment to be fully intentionally present and fully loving. That's wonderful. I think a lot of kids were raised with parents who didn't love each other.
Well, we came from a generation of where, there wasn't a therapist on, every corner. It wasn't a common conversation. It was the age of Cosmopolitan magazine talking about, hey, you don't like your relationship, get a divorce, be a liberated person, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was a rough time for our parents, man. And and look what happened. We had a generation of latchkey kids in broken homes. But it's not their fault. It really is not our parents' fault, man. It's just where they ended up and they got to play that out. And boy, I sure blamed my parents for a lot of years. But through the process of recovery, when I went in and I started really getting in their shoes and really understanding where they came from, it's like, man, how can we judge or blame them, man? I kind of love it. It's like, wow, thank you for showing up and being that role for me so I could have this experience and heal through it and become this, right? It's like addiction was one of those things that, thank God, because I think it's like we all have these, the watercolor paints that we used to use as little kids. And sometimes they have the one little strip with a few paints and a paintbrush. That's when we have really trying and challenging experience in our life, that big palette of paints or like the little strip of crayons. Like, that's what I mean by empathy and understanding and experience. It's like we have this breadth of opportunity to help more people, right? Like, I don't want just a little box of crayons. I want the big box, man, with the freaking the sharpener on it. And that is, and how that looks like, what that looks like in the real world is I can talk to the gutter addict, the gutter drunk, right? I can talk to the divorcee, right? I can talk to the person who was suicidal. And then I can talk to people who are running companies, because when that's the gift, right? I regret nothing. I at all. I'm grateful for the history. I've made peace and I made amends with all the individuals who are part of my life lovingly. So again, I think whatever we've experienced and gone through in this life we can give it meaning, man.
And that's the gift is knowing that, you're the superhero in the movie.
Be the one. My friend Justin Prince, actually, I'm using it as a mic stand here, but I want to show it because I met Justin at a business mastery a few years ago, but he wrote this book called Be the One. He's a forward by John Maxwell. Really neat human. But yeah, be the one. Be the one in our life that creates the ripple effect for future generations, right? We have an opportunity to march the ball down the field with the gifts and the talents that we have in life. And growth isn't comfortable, it's uncomfortable. So every day expect it to be a little uncomfortable until the uncomfortable becomes comfortable, and then find the new next and go again and again and again. Because as we do that, our kids have the ability to go to that edge and start their own. Too many people, and myself included, in the past, put the ball down on the field and said, you take it from here, kids. And I have that visualization in my head of my kids looking out from the sidelines. They're cheering me on. Go, Dad. Go, Dad. Running down the field. Then I get a little bit tired. I just don't want to do it anymore. I put the ball down and my kids are like, what? Oh, our kids have way too much, far more in their lives today than we had in our childhood to burden them with work that is ours. You know what I mean? So do the work, take breaks, rest, recover, have grace, and then get back in there and go again and go again. Because we don't know, again, I get really long-winded, Demetri. We're not promised tomorrow, man.
Right.
No,
you got to put it all out there on the field today and run up the score as much as you can. And if you can win some more, right? You still got, hours to go in the day, and you've hit your sales target, and you still got another hour to go make some more calls, right? Like, be the one. Ed Milet talks about the power of one more call, one more rep, right? One more set, one more mile, one more podcast episode, right? I started from episode 1 and now in the 20s, right? It's going to be at 30. And I went to an event recently where somebody who develops a lot of properties said, "Oh, I'm in the 1% of podcasts." Like, just because I went over.
So congratulations, you're a 1%er. That's fantastic.
Right? Well, I can be in 1% in that place, and then 1% somewhere else, and then perhaps 1% in my health. Right? It's that's the game, right? It has to be the fun to the process, and then actually loving the effort rather than saying, "Oh, I have to." The gratitude. And I think you attach very heavy to gratitude, and that we get to do this. That you've gone through, and I've gone through things that would have to, right? You mentioned earlier that you had a friend that's no longer with us because when he looked back, you look forward.
Yeah, fortunate, man. It's a fascinating study, but yeah, absolutely, man. It's doing the best we can with what we have right where we're at, and accepting. Like, I love what, Tony is really clear. I've got a fun picture here of me and Tony. So he's looking at me while we're doing this. Tony's amazing, man. He just said, look, we have to be honest about where we're at. Don't catastrophize it. Don't make it better than it is. Don't make it worse. Just take stock, take inventory of our life. Right. And then develop a plan for advancement, of expansion, that's congruent for you, the individual, because what's right for that guy, it's not necessarily going to be right for this guy. Right. And just learning to play the play life well to our standards is all that we're doing, not theirs, ours, but what I also know by being in the game, one of the things I really enjoy about going to events, and Tony's events really attract a beautiful like community. Some of these people are running some giant businesses, and that doesn't happen by accident. That's the art of relationship communication. Like, it's an art. And then there's some stars, but I get to be in that room and I see what's possible. And then I know what's possible for me, because I start to look at, well, this is it. This is all there is. I'm doing good. And it's not like more is going to make me more worthy or God love me more. It just means what else is there for me? Right. And that's exciting to me, is how can I get uncomfortable a little bit more to make that uncomfortable comfortable? Because every time we do that, everything looks different. It's like, oh, I thought I knew. Oh, now I know. And I always want to have that experience of, oh, I thought it was this way, but now I see it's actually, it's just, life is just this juicy, beautiful thing. And it's full of pain, full of grief, and it's full of joy and just awestruck wonder and wide-eyed wonder and pain, like this life. And we want to be able to navigate all of it. And I'm going to end this thought stream with this, that I know about myself. And I heard somebody else say it, and I'm quoting them. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. So in the morning, I might be just ambitious and optimistic and kind and loving. By the afternoon, after I've really gone for it, then that can turn. And instead of being kind and loving and optimistic, I start looking out. It's like, you need to pick that up. You need to do it this way. And it's an interesting thing. And I think it's part of our human design, our nature, that's where I need to go shut my mouth and be present and do no harm. Right. So I really think that's important for people to hear, that fatigue makes cowards of us all. Some of the kindest things we can do is to keep our mouth shut. Never miss an opportunity to keep our mouth shut. And if we want, keep those reactions, responses, and thoughts that we think are true to ourselves until we've rested and recovered, and we can really analyze that and see if that even really matters. Because most of the things that outside of us that are offensive to us are actually ours, not theirs. Right. So we need to look at that stuff.
Well, and I think what you encompass there is conflict avoidance rather than conflict.
Yeah, don't put more shit in your life and more things that need to be cleaned up than necessary. That's what happens in relationships. There's too much water under the bridge. I think everything is possible and can be renewed. But the reality is, sometimes there's a lot of water under the bridge. It's like, is it worth it? Do we weigh it out? Right. So avoid that. Don't pee in your living room. Every time you make a quip or something snarky or treat your spouse like a fucking college buddy, not okay, man. That's your beloved, and it's sacred. Same thing with our kids. Well, our family's just sarcastic. Change it. Not cool, man. Barbed humor is traumatizing. And it stacks up. Give people the best opportunity they possibly can. Thicken their skin and strengthen their tenacity through experiences, right? Don't people's self-esteem, man. We'll never outperform our self-esteem. So let's help people build their self-esteem. Self-esteem is developed by esteemable acts, right? So point people in the direction of esteemable acts. Anyway.
No, clearly, I mean, my self-esteem was busted like 10 years ago. And one of the books that helped me was, I think, it was Dr. Braden's 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, just to help reestablish that foundation of believing in yourself. Right? That if others don't believe in you, parents, loved ones, a partner, then that might hurt
Yeah.
you. But if you have that strong center and you're connected to your higher source, it doesn't matter what other opinions of you
Yeah.
are, whether they're legit or not, because you have a strong sense of self. But that takes years to develop, and but it can be done. And when you're at that place, you live you live a wealthier life, regardless of what how much money is in your
Yeah.
account. Um, and so, living this journey where you take a bunch of punches, you get knocked out, you lose some battles, you lose some wars, and you come out here, it's like you're triumphant. I mean, you have the name Troy.
Yeah.
The show of the Trojan War. I mean, seriously, and you're less than years old, but you're not old at all. You're new. In
Every
fact,
day.
you're reverse the clock.
Every day.
You're younger. You're younger than you were. You were older then. You're younger now.
Yeah, we're biohackers, right? Like, there's these tests, these grip tests. Grip strength is an actual really good indicator of longevity. And so now I'm showing off, but we were in an event and 1,200 people had done this grip strength test. And out of 1,200 people, I was number one, man. Like, so I have a biological age. It's at least 10 years younger than my chronological age through a lot of work. That wasn't always the case, but it was, yeah, it's fun. It is. Yeah. We get to renew ourselves daily, right?
Yes, and then if where do you think do you feel like there's room in our diets for what people call cheat days, or eating something with sugar, or eating something
Heck yeah.
processed, and like a ratio or, or a moment, and then it won't throw you off your pattern of you know
I do for sure. And again, a lot of this is just my own personal experience, right? It's better to speak from personal experience than theory. The challenge is people, so let's say that somebody wants to, like they've got, being overweight is just, it's unhealthy. It just is, right? It is. And it's a lot of people, it's really, again, I don't like using like this vernacular, but it's true. It's not their fault. Like, we've developed a society and a food industry and marketing and stressors that cause people to remember one of the addictions is food. I am a closet freaking 400-pound man. I'm not kidding, man. I get stressed out. Like, my pantry just like calls to me. So I have to be very careful, full of care of what I put into my pantry because it's still there for me. The challenge. So again, we kind of frame that up, you guys. You see these pictures of men and women in the 40s on the beach versus today. Vastly different bodies. And it's because I believe that we live ultimately in a very toxic culture. Very toxic culture. Air, water, food, the food industry, like the chemical industry has infiltrated our food system, and we're eating things that are harmful to our endocrine system, our hormones, right? Affect our brain and our moods, which is a cascading effect. They're loaded with things that make cravings, so people eat more. So that said, people who love yourself, when I was fat, and I was fat at one time, for me, like, I wasn't morbidly obese, but I was bloated, puffy, inflamed, and I was beating myself up, man, beating myself up because of the way I looked. Took that into meditation, prayer, and grace, and I began just holding my belly, literally holding my belly. I love you. Oh, I love you right where you are. I'm like Santa Claus. I'm jolly, right? And then I developed a plan to get healthy. And so somebody who wants to lose fat, like get healthy, strip off fat, build lean muscle, that's going to take time. And cheat days have no place in the equation for at least 90 days. 90 days. Go 90 days, have a cheat meal. Craft your macros, your fats, proteins, and carbohydrates accordingly so that you don't get massive cravings, and go over the long run. Don't go on a crash diet and bounce back and screw up your basal metabolic. Like, it's really simple, but it's simple to screw up. So cheat days after 90 days. Get with somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. and ask them how to like structure your BMR, basal metabolic rate, how many calories is required on a daily basis for you to live, to beat your heart, breathe the air, and walk around your house, whatever it is. There's 2,000 calories. Mine happens to be 2,900 calories, right? 2,900 calories. I got to eat 2,900 calories a day just to live, right? Now, if I include exercise, 500 calories, that I've got to increase that by 500 calories if I'm going to be working out, right? So anyway, the basal metabolic rate is an important baseline. Any personal trainer can help get that number for you. You don't have to hire the personal trainer, but get that number and then create a healthy eating plan. And for me, I cut out whites and wheats, like whites and wheats, man, gone, right? Wheat is an inflammatory. It's an unintended consequence of genetic modification to get more yield it's not healthy. It causes inflammation, spikes insulin. Every calorie goes in as fat instead of burned as fuel. So anyway, I'm way off on this. Where do you?
No, you're getting on, man. You're getting on. And in fact, if I may add, there was a book that you recommended to me years ago called Wheat Belt. And I read that, and then I got food allergy tested, and I'm
nice.
free.
Good for you, brother.
Like if I, right, and, not only that, like it's gluten sensitivity. It wouldn't send me to the hospital, but then it would make me bloated and glow, and then mood swings, and then I had a naturopathic doctor who was telling me, Demetri, like you gave me like the scare of death, and for that, so thank you to her. For over a year, I didn't eat
bread. Good.
She said, like, you eat bread, your brain will not talk to your mind. Like the brain connection will disconnect, and then you could fall to autoimmune issues, which I have. You could fall to Alzheimer's and other issues. Again, that type 3 diabetes, right? Which people who are, they think, okay, well, the meat is healthy in the sandwich, the cheese is, but you don't think about the bread. You throw out the bread and just eat the rest of it. When I was in Europe in the fall, food was healthier, but it probably still was processed if it's bread. And if it's made in so much more of something ancient, I still think it might be bad, but I would defer to you or any other expert to say what's right.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert by any stretch of the imagination. What I have found is we have experimented with sourdough. Sourdough, generally speaking, is depending on the wheat that you feed it with, the kind of wheat where it comes from, is definitely a lot healthier. Some of the things from like you said, from Europe, if you know where they come from with like their single origin, again, I don't know all the language, but there's breads that are definitely better for the GI tract. But ultimately, at the end of the day, again, everyone's got to find out what their body loves. My body loves ketogenic dieting. My body loves big waterborne foods, like more like what do they call it? The Mediterranean diet. Loves oils, olives, leafy greens, really enjoys that. And I cycle it back and forth. And then when I've reached my goal weight and feel, the way I look, the way I think, because it's all connected, when I'm optimized, dude, we have a place here called Big Judd's. Big Judd's has the gnarliest, greasiest, most delicious burger on the planet. And some people would say, why would you do that? Because I get to. And I know when I eat that burger and those fries that are fried, which are going to give me inflammation, it's going to give me brain fog, I'm going to feel hungover tomorrow. I freaking enjoy it. Every finger licking drop, because I get to. I think that's the big misconception is like, well, you just never can do all these things. There's a really great movie called Awake. It's a autobiography, a documentary about this guy actually. Now I call myself I don't want to put a label on myself, but I'm I've got the cross on my whiteboard here. I'm a follower of the Christ teachings, the Christ consciousness, right? And I think he was not alone in that. This guy here, Yogananda, really amazing book called Autobiography of a Yogi. There's a documentary on Amazon called Awake. And there's a part in there that reminded me of something I'd heard before, which is this guy goes to Yogananda, to his facility that is in Los Angeles. He's been gone from his body for a long time, but he said, I can come here. He says, but I'm a womanizer. Like, I sleep with a lot of women. I'm very, very promiscuous. He goes, you can still do that. He goes, yeah, but I drink a lot. He says, well, I could get drunk. Yogananda goes, you can still do those things. He says, but I smoke cigarettes. And Yogananda goes, you can still smoke. He goes, I can do all these things and I can still come here to this place and I can learn from you and I can meditate. He goes, yeah. He says, but I can't guarantee that going through this process, you'll still want to do those things. That's the whole point, right? We don't have these angel wings popping out of our back, right? We navigate where we're at and we go to the next leg of the journey that's appropriate for us.
I love it because it sounds like you're basically washing out old behavior with new patterns.
Yeah, that's where that length of time of consistency over time, you've got to give it strength. You've got to give it length. In in 12-step programs, there's a recommendation that let's go to 90 meetings in 90 days because we want to create, we can't take something away and not replace it with something else. Nature abhors a void. So if we're taking away alcoholism or food addiction, we've got to replace it with something else. So 90 meetings in 90 days gives us enough time to get new inputs, new connections in relationship, but also new neural pathways and a new game plan. Same thing with nutrition, right? Same thing with anything. You want to be around, be a great business person, be around great business people consistently over time, but we have to stretch it out. The longer we can stretch out the consistency and practice, the better before we throw in the big greasy burger and fries, right? Because what happens is people start getting on this game plan of nutrition and being healthy. And they hear, well, I'm supposed to carb cycle. I'm supposed to have a cheat day, but they do that in the first week. It's like ridiculous. You haven't given the body an opportunity to start resetting its metabolism and restoring its endocrine system, your hormones, right? So you've got to give it enough time for it to go into that space. And then there's lots of books and lots of videos on how and why this works, right? But like what happens to a lot of people, and I've done it numerous times in the past, is I get very, very extreme. It's kind of my nature. And so I will go really low calorie, high fitness exercise, pulled a bicep doing that, tore a pec doing that because I was nutritionally depleted. And then what happens is when I do start to put in food again, my metabolism has slowed way down because my basal metabolic rate of 2,900 goes to 1,000 because I was so low calorie for so long that as soon as I start going back to what I was normally doing, I get fat as hell. You know what I mean? So these are things that people don't really take into consideration or just don't know. And I didn't, but I've learned, I've got the notes. You can learn from me. Moderation and consistency and long stretches of time.
Yeah. I mean, it started with Aristotle saying and moderation in all things. And, excesses like, long excesses aren't good, but short ones like intermittent fasting aren't.
Yeah. I haven't eaten yet today. Have you?
No, I haven't, but there's been time where it go 14 hours, 16 hours. I mean, one time I went 3 years, one time.
Whoa, nice. And water fast.
Yeah, I did. And I'm like, I felt like, wait, I'm not hungry, but I should eat.
That's what you just said with intermittent fasting is one of the primary ways, simplest ways for we human beings to gain discipline over our body. Right? Because our body stores the energy and the trauma and the behaviors. So when we intentionally set ourselves to do an intermittent fast, so like you said, 14 hours, 15, 16, 17, 18 hours, when we tell ourselves, I'm doing this, we're not going to die. We're not going to starve. It's actually very healthy. Then we start getting dominion over the machinery, right? We get control over it. So intermittent fasting is a very powerful way for people to begin strengthening their discipline. It is definitely for me. The other thing, like when people eat, when historically before a fast food joint, gas station, grocery store on every corner, we didn't eat much. We would eat a couple times a day or 3 big meals when we worked on the farm, right? With long periods of no food. Digestion requires massive amounts of energy, massive amounts of energy. And if we're constantly eating and snacking and eating and snacking, the digestive system doesn't slow down. It's constantly burning off. It's working. Put that in with toxic foods and it's really working overboard, right? When we fast, it takes about 5 hours for food to truly leave the digestive system, right? And then shut down. So where does all that energy go that was formerly going to digest food? It's now freed up to heal those sore, achy joints, to get rid of zombie cells, right? To repair and regenerate and rest and recover. So I'm glad you brought that up. Fasting is a really powerful tool.
Right. I mean, it's like sending a cleaner through your body.
Yeah. Yeah. With our own natural cleaner, man. So yeah, well, we can start talking about coffee enemas next, man. Releasing all that massive glutathione, the master.
I haven't bought that. I haven't taken like I took a lot of leaps with you, but I didn't take the coffee animal leaf. Yeah, you're more than welcome to know it. It's how it benefited and help reset livers and change.
Yeah, it does. So there's I was first introduced to it through about the same time I was learning from Ben Greenfield, really amazing guy, a beautiful human. Wouldn't call him a friend because I haven't spent that time with him, but I did spend a day with him at his place in Spokane, and he kicked my ass on his Spartan training grounds. And then we got to grill together. So it was a real honor and a treat to be around him because he's quite the Renaissance man and really amazing biohacker. But there was also a movie that came out called The Beautiful Truth. You can still get it like on Amazon, The Beautiful Truth. And it was really about the Gerson therapies. Gerson therapies, it's holistic and natural healing of cells that basically distort and cluster. Wink, wink, elbow, elbow. So basically how people who were getting cancer were recovering from that. And one of the things that they did was full whole food juicing, nutritionally dense juicing. Doesn't require a lot of digestion, but packed with nutrients. And then coffee enemas. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Freaking hippies. The reality is they found that caffeine through a coffee enema causes the liver two things, well, more than two things, but the bile duct, it releases the bile that's stored in the bile duct, which typically becomes very sludgy, and even a healthy human can get sludgy. It releases that, which causes, better digestion, but it also, glutathione is an antioxidant that is produced naturally in the body. And the majority of it is stored in the liver, but it stays there unless it's caused and releases gradually unless it's forced to release bigger quantities. And a coffee enema will release mass quantities of glutathione. So now you got these antioxidants that are surging through the body and the bloodstream that are eliminating toxins and free radicals, right? So that's the reason for that. That's how I became aware of it. But I also noticed that as I implement those into my life, brain fog goes away, depression goes away, more clear-minded, better sleep. There's a lot of benefits, a lot of hacks. You don't have to do coffee enemas to be a biohacker, but I would definitely look into it.
Well, it makes me want to go.
Well, that's one of the things that attracted Lori and I when we went on our first date. How I knew, it was like, this is my wife, man. This is my future wife.
You bonded over it,
bro. Yeah, bottoms up, man. Right? She told me that she lived in Hawaii, or she went to Hawaii, and she's got a colonic board, and she has coffee, and it was like, oh my gosh, I do too. And so we started sharing our health notes, and she's just my soulmate, man. She's a queen, and she's.
Well, it is. You got to clean out your plumbing,
yeah,
right? And when you see that people eat processed foods and have high rates of colorectal cancer and other illnesses because of accumulated toxins that aren't released, these things that we initially laugh at because they're kind of uncomfortable become possible remedies. And it won't cost much as long as you source it right.
Yeah, and it all comes, again, pain is the touchstone of growth. And the gift I was given was addiction because I had to change or die. And sadly, too many people in life won't even look. They got blind spots and limiting beliefs about these types of health modalities, protocols, until there's a crisis, until they get that phone call from the doctor saying, "Oh shit, get your life in order." Then they'll do anything to recover. But the sad thing about today's, and I'm not against Western medicine. It's been a blessing and a gift. It's a miracle. I believe it's the combination of Western and holistic medicine, right? The combination of both, because our bodies, when put into a homeostatic space, will heal itself. It's the way it's designed. Sadly, we went from having these amazing Western medicine has gone into a dominant form of it's the only way. And the solution to a lot of disease now is cut, burn, poison them back to health. Hope the human doesn't die before the whatever does, right? And so it really is just, people will put like radiation, like radiate themselves, and that has its place. I have friends who've gone through this and lived, thank God for it. But it's, coffee enemas become a lot more palatable when you look at putting poison in your body that's literally killing you and hoping it kills the cancer first. I don't know if that's going to mess up your algorithm or not, but
No, it does. It does. Because I think if anyone is given the option of radiation chemotherapy, they may choose radiation because maybe it's limited, but it also has side effects, sometimes long term. And you know, some of my friend circles, their parents may be getting dementia now as a result of some radiation treatments they
yeah,
received, like a decade
yeah,
for treatment. Now, you know, like if you eat better, exercise better, and you're mindful, uh, and you know, you don't have that accumulation in your body that turns out to be a
yeah,
cancer, a long term, a metabolic thing that you just deal with pills.
100%.
You know,
I've got a,
I can probably speak for both of them that prescriptions aren't the answer.
no, they again have their place, and some people absolutely, it's a godsend for them. I've got an acquaintance, not a friend, but an acquaintance who was going through some cancer treatments, and they did a combination of a specific and high potent nutraceutical nutrition and a molecule, along with radiation and chemotherapy. And typically through chemotherapy and radiation, they just get completely nauseous and wiped out. And the beautiful thing is it was doing its job. This was doing its job and keeping the body as healthy and purging of the toxins as possible, so that each time they got these treatments, it was almost as if they were not being poisoned. They felt good, and they did fully recover. So again, I'm really big on they both have their place, you know, but we are responsible for our health, not our doctor, right? We are. And so do our own research, do our own work for ourselves, and be responsible for all things in
Right.
life.
And I think that matters a lot, because growing up in the Greek community, doctor was seen as God, right? Where the divine is within us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you know, going to that doctor and saying, you know, in the last few years, what's your vaccine status, and please wear a
Yeah.
mask. And you're like, no, I'm going to show up as me, right? This self took a lot of work to work on, so I'd like to share it with you. and, and you know, I'd like to, you know, I go to the east first. I go to acupuncture first. When
Yeah.
it feels like I'm an inflated balloon, right? And I've gone into weekly regimens the last
Super
many,
cool.
and combined with, you know, the good intake of the herbs and the acupuncture, I'm more optimized, right? And so that's the person that shows up today.
Yeah, brother. And I want to turn this a little bit and just let you know how I'm so grateful for social media, for the reason that I get to stay connected with people that I love. And for whatever reason, you and I connected on a soul level, and getting to watch your journey has been just a joy, man. And I've just watched you transform, man. Like you look as well as like you look very well and bright and vibrant and joyful. And I'm grateful to get to see that with you. And I'm grateful to be able to share notes with one
Well,
another.
I'm honored. I'm honored to know you and ride along on this journey, the ups and downs, you know, of life, and celebrate your growth,
One another, man.
and be happy for the new rooms that you've entered, the new relationships that you've uh, you know, nurtured, and maintain and so these are the partnerships that lead to our greater growth.
Amen.
And people do fall in and out of our lives, but the people who stay, you're like, oh, these are
Yeah,
good
baby.
people. And so when I created the podcast, I said, look, I want to get to the place where I bring Troy on. And I said, I know we're going to have that conversation. It's going to be great. And in whichever directions it goes in, because, a lot of times you have that high value conversation with a friend, like yourself, and you're like, oh, if someone was applying this route, they're going to learn something.
I hope so, Demetri. I hope some people get some value from this. I know that some people are like, man, that's a lot of talking that guy does. It's just, but it is what it is. Hopefully it lands for some.
It's a lot of
It's a
living.
lot of living, man. And
It's a lot of living, bro. You live a good life for a person who's easy to spell name. Like no one ever misspelled your name.
Yeah, right. Right. Got you there.
My name gets misspelled, mispronounced. I always tell people to write.
Yeah.
Obsessed over that.
Well, I always just call you D, man. It's like, yo, what's up, D? Because it was easier. Okay. But we've got to get.
As long as it's big D.
Of course, man. It's all a matter of perspective, how close you're looking, right? So let's get you out here, man. Let's get back out to Idaho.
I'm happy to go on more adventures, and that's the other gift of podcasts is it reconnects you with people who, like you're always a fan, a supporter. You like the comment, you send a message, a text, but then it's the intent, right? Being fully present right now in this conversation, right? Getting to know each other again, knowing that we do align and our futures are kind of like if we were going to go on a hike together, we could both.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that. Like, we can.
Right? You would have to pick me up.
You'll navigate that river next time with ease.
River to walk through. I got it. I'll be more prepared. I wouldn't walk in my khaki, right place.
I was just I like, yeah, get out here. Like, I don't think he even said okay. I think he called me the next day and said, I'm coming out. like right on. It was awesome, man. I love it when people say yes and take a step. Like, what's there to think about? Yes, take a step. Boom. I take that from my friend Jay Souter. That's one of his. He's like, yes, and take a step, man. Feel it. Yes, take a step. Tony says, don't leave the side of a decision without taking massive action. And that's what you did. So I deeply admire you, man. I'm grateful that you and I are friends.
Wow. And I think like, even though we're a few thousand miles away, I feel like that was more honor.
Yeah. Great.
You said, I appreciate all the love. I appreciate the impact.
Thanks, man.
And how would you want to be seen as like for your legacy? Like, how do you want to be remembered?
Well, that's a great question. For me personally, it's not the stuff, it's the experience, right? I love to write and everybody's got their jam. I love to write. Like this is just being able to have a fingerprint on the future and whether it's digital or written, beautiful, but also it's the lives that we impact, the experiences that we've had to share the knowledge to where other people get to live a life a little bit weller, right? I don't believe in good, bad, better. I weller, more aware, right? When we're more aware and we're connecting with ourselves and connected with source, life gets it's like in flow and juicy. So the impact for me would be, I really want to create, a life that has some resonance to it in that way, written and actually manifested in other human beings. And that's it, and now it comes from a place of genuine, I'm sure there's probably a little bit of taste of ego in there still, but it's not like it once was, it doesn't make me more or less. I just really want to have a positive impact on this plane of existence.
Well, that's beautiful. And you've definitely built that. And I look forward to, every year's new version.
Can I share one last thing with you, D? So I was told this. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Now I believe I understand. a mentor said, the people who are the wellest and the greatest contributions no one has heard of. And now I understand what that means. And this is the beautiful thing about all of us. One who cleans up their own stuff inside is obviously is going to clean up the outside. We clean up the inside, the outside cleans up, right? When we integrate and we clean up and we have that connection with the divine, when we're channeling in love and light into ourselves, it radiates out to others. That is a massive contribution, a massive contribution. So if we just spend time inside in love and joy and we visualize that going to the planet, that's a tremendous gift to the masses. You don't need to write a check. Don't need to do anything. Don't need to, just become more awake, more aware. And that's a big contribution to the planet. So if that's all I got to do, I'd be really cool with that too.
Wow. Well, you've empowered me to be the person I am. So and I'm living proof of your legacy.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Like I said, I'm strengthened and resolved to continue to be better. It may have taken me a little longer to be wherever I am, but I feel like that's
we're all right where we're supposed to be. We're right on time, baby. Me too. Exactly. Thank you for your time.
Oh,
and being
my pleasure. How can people find you, Troy?
Yeah, but social media, like I'm pretty, Facebook is obviously, it's an old guy platform. Instagram, I'm starting to build out. I am on LinkedIn. I'll start working on that, but probably the easiest way, and it needs to be updated, is troyolds.com. So troyolds.com will be like the landing page that can take people anywhere. I'll put up a new picture with me with a shirt on, because I got in really good shape, I thought, oh, I want to show people this, like, that doesn't resonate anymore.
It inspired me. Not that, I would buy Muscle and Fitness magazine and I learned how to get a six pack and not quite do it. And then I see you saying, "Hey, don't let your testosterone drop," right? And then you take all these techniques and diets and exercise. Like, look at me, I don't need any, TRT. I'm natural. I'm like, wow. Like, yes, it is possible, right? So then I'm inspired by your journey and your boldness and taking steps forward. So then it encourages people like me to take steps forward and be brave.
So we do, man. As long as we just be transparent, man. We've done it, and I'll tell people what's going on. Tell them the truth so they can navigate. All right, brother.
Hey, the truth vibrates the highest of all.
That's it.
Right? And you're shaking off all the masks. You're shaking off the things and the causes and the people who didn't serve. And you are your true you. And so the people who ally are our allies, are in that battle with us, right? For good. And then that community, the one that you support and the one that supported you, is there for you in your low moments, in the valleys, that you go right back to.
We need each other, man. We don't, it's not ego. It's we go together. We need each other by design. We're all connected anyway. The more that we embrace that and ask for help and support where we can, the better. We ought to, maybe in the future, we could have a conversation about all the different biohacking tools and technologies and supplementation, peptides, like all the things that are out there that are science-based, massive benefits that will help people. Be happy to.
Well, tune into our next episode in the near future, where Troy is already agreed to return to go more into detail about some of the nutritional stack and some of the next generation and current available remedies and therapies that are available to everyone.
Be lovely.
To address your health so that you can lessen that worry.
I love it. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. It was really a joy.
Thank you so much for being a guest today, Troy, but more so you're a brother. And I'm grateful for your presence.
Thank you, my man. Thanks, D. See you.